This was the night a teenage love story turned into a nightmare. July 31st, 2022, Strongsville, Ohio. In the early hours of the morning, while most of the town slept, 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla was behind the wheel of her Toyota Camry, driving. Her boyfriend, 20-year-old Dominic Russo, and their friend, 19-year-old Davion Flanagan, through the quiet streets. To anyone else, it was just another late-night drive. But this would be the night Mackenzie made a choice that would end 2 lives, destroy her own future, and send shockwaves across the country. Just after 5:30 a.m., security cameras captured her car barreling down a narrow residential road at over 100 miles per hour. In an instant, the Camry missed a curve, launched off the pavement, and slammed into the side of a vacant office building with catastrophic force. Neighbors were jolted awake by the explosion of glass and steel. Within minutes, first responders arrived to a scene so devastating it didn't look survivable. Dominic and Davion were dead in their seats, and Mackenzie was unconscious, barely clinging to life. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident. A reckless teen driver pushing her car too far. But as investigators began collecting evidence, a darker story emerged. Vehicle data, skid marks, or the lack of them, and surveillance footage told a chilling tale. Mackenzie Shirilla had not lost control of her car. Prosecutors would later claim she had weaponized it, intentionally flooring the gas pedal to kill Dominic in a moment of rage. This was no ordinary crash. This was the morning a toxic relationship turned deadly, and a teenage girl would soon face a courtroom accused of turning heartbreak into homicide. Timeline and investigation in the days following the crash, Strongsville was in shock. A quiet Ohio suburb known for its tree-lined streets and tight-knit neighborhoods had become the center of a story that felt almost unreal. At first, friends and family grieved, lighting candles for Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan, while hoping Mackenzie Shirilla would recover from her catastrophic injuries. Few imagined that behind the grief, detectives were already piecing together a case that would rewrite the entire narrative of that night. Police retrieved data from the Toyota Camry's event data recorder, essentially a black box for cars. The numbers were staggering. In the seconds before impact, Mackenzie's foot was fully pressed on the accelerator, pushing the car to 100 miles per hour. There was no sign she ever hit the brakes. The crash wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. It was a deliberate push to the limit. Security cameras from a nearby business confirmed what the data suggested. Footage showed the car speeding straight toward the building without hesitation, its headlights cutting through the dawn. Investigators also noted the absence of skid marks on the road. Mackenzie had not attempted to swerve or slow down. As Mackenzie lay in a hospital bed, recovering from broken bones and brain injuries, officers began interviewing friends, family, and witnesses. Stories emerged of a volatile relationship between Mackenzie and Dominic. Friends described frequent arguments, jealousy, and tension. Prosecutors would later argue this wasn't just a crash, but the climax of months of toxicity, a moment where anger behind the wheel became deadly intent. By late 2022, detectives had enough evidence to charge Mackenzie Shirilla with multiple counts of murder, felonious assault, and aggravated vehicular homicide. What had first looked like a tragic teenage mistake was now being treated as a calculated act, one that would lead a 17-year-old to stand trial for double murder. Forensic evidence and courtroom drama. When the case reached the courtroom, every detail of the crash scene became critical. Prosecutors built their case around cold, unshakable data. The Camry's black box revealed acceleration readings that left no room for doubt. Mackenzie's foot was pressed all the way down on the gas pedal with no sign of braking. The car didn't skid, didn't swerve, and never slowed down. Instead, it surged forward like a missile aimed at the vacant building. Crash reconstruction experts testified that this wasn't an accident born of inexperience. It was a deliberate act. The damage to the car, the trajectory of the impact, and the absence of evasive action all painted a chilling picture. Surveillance video from nearby security cameras was shown to the court, capturing the Camry speeding down Alameda Drive in the quiet dawn before slamming into the building. The footage left the courtroom silent. Forensic specialists described the violent scene inside the vehicle. The force of the collision had instantly killed Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. Mackenzie's survival was considered miraculous. She had suffered severe injuries, including a concussion, broken bones, and brain trauma. Her recovery would take months, but it also meant she would live to face justice. Prosecutors argued that this was not a reckless mistake but a calculated act driven by rage. Friends of the couple testified about Mackenzie and Dominic's turbulent relationship, describing jealousy, arguments, and emotional instability. Prosecutors claimed she used her car as a weapon to end the fight once and for all. Mackenzie's defense team painted a different picture. They argued that her injuries clouded her memory and that the crash was a tragic accident, not a planned killing. They emphasized her young age and lack of criminal history, hoping to convince the court that this was recklessness, not murder. But as the trial continued, the weight of the evidence, digital, physical, and emotional, began to tip the scales. The verdict and shockwaves. August 2023, nearly a year after the deadly crash, the packed courtroom in Cuyahoga County sat in heavy silence as Judge Nancy Margaret Russo delivered her verdict. The trial had lasted days, but its outcome would be remembered for years. Reviewing the surveillance footage frame by frame and analyzing the black box data in painstaking detail, the judge concluded that this was no accident. Mackenzie Shirilla, now 19 years old, was found guilty on all charges: 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, and drug possession after THC cartridges were found in the car. In her ruling, Judge Russo described the crash as a mission of death, saying Mackenzie's actions were deliberate and calculated. She had a mission, and she executed it with precision, the judge said, a statement that sent a chilling ripple through the courtroom. Mackenzie wept as the verdict was read, while family members of Dominic and Davion held one another. Outside, the case ignited a national conversation about teenage crime, mental health, and the growing use of vehicle data in prosecutions. How could a 17-year-old, barely out of high school, commit an act prosecutors called a murder plan carried out? Behind the wheel? The story resonated deeply, not just because of its brutality, but because of who was involved. 3 young lives on a summer night that should have ended safely. Dominic's mother addressed the media, calling Mackenzie's actions pure evil, while Davion's family described him as a gentle soul whose life was stolen. The case also raised questions about accountability and justice for young offenders. Despite her age at the time of the crime, Mackenzie was tried as an adult, facing a mandatory life sentence with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The verdict wasn't just a legal decision. It was a statement that age would not shield someone from consequences this severe. Aftermath and where the case stands. Today, the Mackenzie Shirilla case left a lasting scar on Strongsville, Ohio, and sparked conversations far beyond the small suburban community. In August 2023, after her conviction, Mackenzie was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences with the possibility of parole after 15 years. For the families of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan, the verdict brought a sense of justice, though no sentence could undo the devastation of losing 2 young men full of promise. Dominic was remembered as ambitious and protective, while Davion was described as kind-hearted and full of laughter. Vigils, murals, and memorials appeared around town, a reminder of the lives lost and the cautionary tale of a night that changed everything. Mackenzie's defense team has hinted at appeals, questioning whether the verdict fairly weighed her youth, mental health, and injuries from the crash. However, prosecutors stood firm, stating the evidence, particularly the lack of braking, security footage, and relationship history, made the case undeniable. The tragedy also highlighted how digital data now shapes criminal cases. Investigators relied heavily on the Camry's black box, security footage, and forensic analysis to prove intent. The case has since been used in legal discussions as an example of technology turning car crashes into solvable crimes. 4. Strongsville residents, the intersection of Alameda Drive and Progress Drive, once just a quiet corner, has become a memorial site, a symbol of 2 lives gone too soon and one young woman's irreversible choice. Even as appeals and debates continue, the Mackenzie Shirilla case serves as a chilling reminder. One moment of rage behind the wheel can ripple outward, destroying lives, families, and entire communities forever.